This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast to support this show. Get your ad-free episodes, exclusive bonus episodes. Mm-hmm. And listen, there are weeks when I'm like, all right, we got one story that's kind of insane and a few other smaller ones. This time, oh my God, they're all like big, giant, crazy. And I'm so excited to talk to you about all of them.
Yeah, this was a week, eh?
This was quite a week. Okay, I'm going to start by talking about my beef with an 80s TV star. Okay.
And my step into the national spotlight.
And your step into the national spotlight. So, you know, I'm watching my videos of Christians that make me go slowly insane. And this week, there was an interesting one.
This isn't for work. This is just what you do in your off time.
Yeah, this is my idea of fun. One of the videos came from the activist mommy who became infamous, I guess, several years ago when she started burning magazines that she said were like LGBTQ friendly. She was
the name sounds familiar.
She
but
was
burning.
like Elizabeth Johnston is her name. She started like burning stuff. You know the way all those moms groups have been calling for book banning. All those types of things. She was doing it before a lot of them were. And you know she went viral
an old
for
school
a while.
Troll.
Old school troll. Who then disappeared for a while because I think of personal issues. But now she's trying to build up her ministry again for women.
Ministry?
They all have their own ministries.
Okay.
And I honestly, she doesn't do as much culture war stuff as she used to. But, you know, you can't unlearn how to do that stuff.
Sure, yeah.
So
it's always in your heart.
So I'm watching her ministry's channel, as I do.
So weird.
And what she was doing this week is she was interviewing Kirk Cameron, the 80s Growing Pains TV star turned evangelist, known for being in that Bananas, the Atheist's Worst Nightmare video.
Oh, so good.
Starred, I use that word loosely, in a remake of the Left Behind movies.
I did not. No, he did the original ones. Nicolas Cage did the remake.
That's okay, fair. And so now he just does really bad Christian movies.
Sure does.
But he's still there. And sometimes he goes on Fox News to promote, you know, book banning and whatever it is he does now. So
honestly, Fireproof is one of the worst pieces of quote-unquote cinema I've ever seen. I've seen it twice.
So she was interviewing him, and I'm like, it's not a long
big
interview.
Get for her.
It's a get. So they were talking, and I'm like, it's not a long interview. I can speed through this, going at my usual, like, 2.0 speed. Mm-hmm. And then I heard something that was like, wait a minute, got to back up, got to hear this one again. And I'm going to play for you just a short clip of what he said, because his argument, if I may put it in the best of possible terms, is that public schools are very bad. We need to homeschool our children or put them in good private Christian schools.
Yeah.
But he didn't just say that. He had to explain why public schools are bad.
Sure.
And so this is how Kirk Cameron explains public schools are very, very bad places.
If we outsource our parenting because it's easier, or we believe the lie that we're not qualified experts to educate our kids, so we have to subcontract our parenting and discipleship out to the government, we're going to have little kids that come back as little Marxists, little statists, little atheists, drag queens, strippers, drug dealers, and you name it. Pull your kids out of the schools that are teaching your kids bad things and put them into places that teach them good things.
Yeah, so that's his argument.
Oh my God, that's like an argument of a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
Stop doing the bad thing and make the good thing.
If you send your kids to public schools, they'll come back as little Marxists.
That's
which
wild. They're going to grow a beard.
Third grade curriculum right there.
Oh, yeah.
The Marxism. Little status, which I had to take a second for that one because, like, I've heard right-wing people be like, it's a globalist. They all want a one-world government or something, which is dumb. Like, countries exist. Or they're nationalists, which they all love because they want to take... Status, I guess, means the state wants to control your life, but also...
That doesn't make sense.
I
think he meant to say Satanist and got lost in the sauce.
Maybe. Little atheists, which I promise you that's not how it works. Drag queens, strippers, drug dealers, you name it. That's what happens if you send your kids to public schools. They only have those options if you fill out the survey and you talk to your school counselor.
Which one are you?
I am the stripper/drug dealer. I was
wow.
very talented,
You
so I
took
got multiple
2.
options.
Oh, interesting,
Yes.
interesting.
So naturally, when I posted that clip online, I mean, listen, I had to not look at my Twitter mentions for about 2 days straight because so many people were either quoting that or responding to it saying, okay, well, I went to public school. Here's what I became. My kids go to public school. Here's what they're doing now. What they're doing is public service. They're helping people in the following ways. And like, yeah, whether it's J.D. Vance or Kirk Cameron or anybody else who loves trashing public schools because they want money to go to their private religious schools, they never have good reasons for doing it. Or when they offer some reasons, it's like, you don't know the first thing about how public schools work,
and
what the curriculums are like.
The funny thing is, there are rooted criticisms of public schools right there. They're underfunded. They're overcrowded. Teachers are underpaid. Like, they had to buy. There's plenty of ways we can criticize public schools that are honest,
legit. Yeah, that are actual
and not
ways.
making shit up.
This idea that they're trying to indoctrinate your kids into becoming atheists or strippers/drug dealers/drag queens. It's like, maybe, listen, why don't you step inside a public school? All those parents who complain about public schools all the time, like, part of me just wants to scream at them like they have so many nasty things to say about teachers. It's like, you understand that if you ever had a conversation with your kids' teachers, you would realize just how wrong you are about all this stuff. But you complain about them because you don't want to actually talk to these people.
I mean,
if you had a relationship with your child that involved them telling you what school was like, but your kids don't want to tell you because they don't trust you or they don't think you care about it. Like, that's the problem. As someone who is actively involved in my kids' education, it's like, yeah, my kids' teachers are great. You know how I know that? Because my kid tells me what goes on at school. If I have questions, I could talk to their teachers about it. I've gone to these school events that involve parents.
Well, their entire worldview is kind of framed around othering people and not giving them any kind of nuance. And that is... That, I mean,
and it's very easy
terrible.
to demonize when you don't have nuance, which is another story we'll get to soon.
I mean, truly, like, oh yeah, these people, like, they do not care to learn. They just want to have their own way and will say whatever lies they need to make themselves seem like the heroes. I don't know, man.
So many people were sharing that clip that Kirk Cameron was trending on Twitter for a while. And then a bunch of articles started coming out about, oh, hey, remember Kirk Cameron?
Viral. Capital V viral.
That clip went viral. And when they were sharing, like, do you guys remember Kirk Cameron? It's like, yeah, he's been saying stupid shit for years, but I'm glad you finally caught on, everybody.
Yeah.
But they all shared that clip and they were saying, this is what Kirk Cameron is saying about this stuff. And of course, most of these places, these outlets, they would cite either me as the person who first clipped it and shared it. In one case, in Newsweek, they're like, Hemant Mehta, who is the co-host of the Friendly Atheist podcast, along with...
And
Jessica.
They gave my whole name. They spelled it right. Jessica Greiff, right there. I was very excited. And they did not need to do that because I was not part of this. But it was exciting for me.
Nice.
I was in the barn working when you sent, Hemant emailed it to me because I was mentioned in it. And he knows I'm a deep-seated narcissist and just have to see that name wherever I can. But interestingly, I was standing around with a bunch of gals who volunteer with me. And I'd say they're all in their 50s, 60s, white ladies, from like kind of a nice area. And so I told them, I was like, oh, I was in Newsweek. And they're like, what? Because most of them don't know what I do. And I learned that the fact that Kirk Cameron is like cuckoo bananas crazy pants is not known by everybody. Like, it really is.
If your entire knowledge of Kirk Cameron stems back to, oh, he was that sitcom star from the 80s.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you've missed a lot.
Yeah, it really... And
not your fault.
And God bless them. Like, they don't need to know this bullshit. Like, I don't even want to know this stupid shit.
That explains pretty much everything I do with my life. Oh, right. Normies don't need to know any of this stuff.
Truly, like, yeah, no, you're better off not knowing. My favorite thing, though, I had been chatting with Ross Blotcher from Owner Ross and Carrie about something else, and I sent him that. I was like, look how famous I am. And he just sends back, At least one of the women who went to Christian school with me is a stripper now. Which is outstanding. Anyway, it was a big day for me, you guys.
Eventually, this clip went so far that Kirk Cameron decided to chime in. And so...
Did he?
Uh-huh. I'm going to read you...
Do you think he read my name?
He read mine, which means he may have read yours as well. Let me read you. It's on Twitter as well. While taken out of context...
Oh, no! You took it out of context, Hemant!
I assure you...
Worst!
I assure you I did not take it out of context.
The worst offense a journalist can make.
If I took it out of context, you, by all means, tell me in what context,
what is the context
any of that would have made sense.
I hate when people said,
So he says, while taken out of context, I'm glad this is topic trending on X as I talk about more in my new book. I'm not going to mention his book. I don't care about his book.
Who cares?
The problems of our struggling culture can be traced back to disengaged parenting and turning away from God. The only solution is turning back to God and parents fiercely guarding our children's academic, spiritual, and emotional learning. Keep your kids in a bubble. He then says, sending our children to public school for education is like sending them to a candy store for nutrition. I'm going to pause there for a second.
I mean, what the fuck is he talking about?
Apparently, it's very, very bad for you if you want to educate your kids.
I just really get frustrated, and I know
These people hate public education.
I know,
so
and I know
much.
it's like part and parcel with their whole thing, but it really frustrates me when people are criticizing something and just making shit up. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about for sure. Like, it really is I think, a difference between the two sort of philosophies of conservative and liberal, or however you want to describe it, of like, I very much want to know that my opinions are rooted in fact and that I haven't been lied to by people.
And living in this conspiracy that if they step outside this Christian bubble, only bad things happen. And listen, if your kids turn into a stripper, why are we even trashing that? If they turn into little atheists... listen.
I mean, if that's the worst thing you can think that your kid does is be a stripper or an atheist, congratulations.
Yeah, right. He goes
Having
on.
kids is hard and
he
terrible.
goes on to say, because this is a very long tweet, because he paid Elon. Parents.
Is he a blue check mark?
Yeah.
Dork.
Paid check mark. Parents, you are your children's best advocate, teacher, and guide. No government program can replace you. Then he says, at Hemant Mehta, I am a recovering atheist.
I love when he says that. He was never an atheist.
I want to send you a copy of my book, in parentheses, On the House, in hopes that you, a friendly...
Just spend $29.99 plus shipping.
In hopes that you, a friendly atheist, would be open to some, quote, wisdom from above.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, back to your recovering atheist comment. Yes, we've known this for years. Everything he has ever said about his atheism phase was more like, I didn't really think about religion much.
Yeah.
And then
Which is how most people live their life, and I don't think he realizes that.
And then I found Jesus, and that's all I can talk about now. Anyway, I told...
It's like when Ray Comfort sent me those pears because we made fun of his terrible movie. Was that Ray Comfort?
Right. That was Ray Comfort.
Those are really good pears, too.
He sends the nicest fruit baskets.
He really did.
Listen, I didn't take him out of context, and I don't want his book. I did offer to send him mine, because guess what? I've spoken to Kirk Cameron because my first foray into public anything atheism was when I did that eBay stunt from 20 years ago.
God,
and when that happened, and when that went viral, one of the people who reached out, like this, was Kirk Cameron, who said, want to come talk about it on my show? And I'm like... Kirk Cameron from the 80s?
Oh,
yes.
my God. Stars in your eyes.
And I went on his show. He doesn't remember this because he thinks this Twitter exchange is the first time we've ever interacted. But when I went on his show, I knew what to expect because I had done some research.
Yeah.
And they did the game of like, do you think you're a moral person? Because guess what? Even if you think you're a good person, you're still going to hell unless you accept Jesus. And like...
Is that what the interview was? Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. It's the only interview he does. It's the only interview Ray Comfort does.
Yeah.
It's the same thing they've been doing for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's the banana thing, but in interview form. And I'm like, buddy, we've spoken before. You tried using the same material against me 20 years ago about how I'm a recovering atheist. Like, I know you. I know you haven't changed anything.
Yeah.
You haven't had a new thought
No.
in like 25 years.
No, he's on rinse and repeat.
Anyway.
He's stuck in a loop like a record. I don't think I knew that you were interviewed by Kirk Cameron. That's pretty interesting.
For a long while.
Yeah.
Too long, really. Many would say.
Maybe you should hang up the old headphones.
I know.
That is wild stuff. And it was a fun day for me to...
I thought it was a stupid little clip, which, like many of the stupid little clips I post, are like, it'll get some traction for like 2 minutes and then move on. I am surprised by how far that one spread, because so many of the articles, including the Newsweek one, are like part of a wire service, which means my alerts were going crazy because every small town paper is reprinting the same article.
Yeah.
And they're all mentioning Kirk Cameron.
Do you have a Google alert on your name?
Of course I do.
Should I do that?
If you
I
want.
don't think anybody talks about me almost ever.
I just want to know who's talking shit about me so I can put them on my list.
Yeah. People who talk shit about me do it to my face or in
Usually Eli Bosnick. That's about it.
People who want to say mean things to me do so in the reviews of our...
I mentioned his name only because he
What's going
has a
on with
quotation in a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Weird.
we're going to talk about Dawkins. It's been a while. We have to.
Been a while.
Okay. Here's the story. There
Has
is
he
an
done
update.
something new?
Oh, he had a week as well.
Did he?
Okay. Here's where this goes. This is actually 3 weeks in the making, and then it hit the fan this week to the point where literally before I came over to record this with you, there was an update. Okay.
Oh.
Here's the story. Last week, Dawkins said that his Facebook page, which has like 600,000 followers or whatever, it was shut down because of something he tweeted.
Oh, interesting.
And that right there should already raise all the alarms because that doesn't make any
not how
goddamn
that
sense.
works.
They're two different companies. Anyway,
It's not like
we'll come back to
Instagram and
this.
Facebook.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to try to rewind the tape a little bit and let me try to explain what the hell's going on here.
Okay.
A little over a week ago, Dawkins shared an article about that Algerian boxer Imani Khalif, who
poor woman.
Right. Went on to win the gold medal, by the way, in boxing. Good for her. But basically, a lot of right-wing people started claiming that this person was really a man who was allowed to box in the Olympics against women.
Yeah, that famously liberal country, Algeria.
Yes. You're already getting ahead of me.
So
but
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry
but you're
that I'm
right.
smarter than you.
Yes. So Dawkins shared an article about that while claiming, this is his quotations, he was claiming that, quote, 2 men masquerading as women,
Jesus Christ, dude.
unquote, were allowed to box in the Olympics against, quote, real women. And that's it. He shared the article.
I mean, just because she punched a cop real good, he's mad.
And by the way, the article he shared is from one of those like right-wing crazy websites too so he shares that, spreads this myth that the Algerian boxer, who again later went on to win gold, was actually...
And I can't be clear enough. It's not trans.
Not trans, right. J.K. Rowling spread this lie. Elon Musk spread this lie. Like, the controversy here is that Khalif, the boxer, was accused of having XY chromosomes and was therefore not a, quote, real woman. The problem with that argument, one of many, is that Khalif was assigned female at birth, identifies as a woman today, is not trans, is not intersex, was never anything except female.
Yeah.
What the critics were saying is that, oh, by the way, the International Olympic Committee, which you would think has a vested interest in making sure the Olympics are run fairly, because that's kind of their whole thing.
That's all they have going.
They said Khalif and one other boxer met their eligibility criteria, so like they didn't have a problem with anything. And also, like you just said, it's kind of silly to think that an openly trans person could exist in Algeria, much less represent them at a global level, because Algeria is one of the worst countries on earth to be LGBTQ. Like, the repression is insane. They are at the bottom of every one of those lists when it comes to LGBTQ rights. There were actually 0 trans athletes at this year's Olympics, though in theory they could be eligible in certain circumstances. There just were none.
Yeah.
The controversy that got spread is that Khalif was one of the boxers who was eliminated from the International Boxing Association's World Championships last year because the IBA's president said, Imani Khalif failed a gender eligibility test due to XY chromosomes. The problem with that is that, one, those claims were never backed up with any sort of evidence.
Jesus Christ.
And also, the IBA's president is a Russian who, by the way, after you disqualified Khalif, it only happened not at the beginning of the event, but after Khalif beat a Russian athlete. And by the way, after Khalif got disqualified, the Russian just got boosted up in the rankings.
Wow.
So this idea that J.K. Rowling really spread that Khalif was a, quote, male punching a female in the name of sport,
which
just had no basis in reality except for this conspiracy theory launched by a Russian operative.
I mean, it's just beyond words.
Yeah. So
this poor woman.
Yeah. So Dawkins spread that idea, this lie, this Russian propaganda, really.
Come on,
and
dog.
then he posted other tweets that went on to mock the idea of trans people competing in any sports. Like, for example, there's a picture of a bunch of bicyclists, and in front of them is someone on a motorcycle, and the caption is, biker who identifies as a cyclist wins the Tour de France. He then retweeted someone else's tweet with the headline, first biological cheetah who identifies as a man set to take gold for Liechtenstein at the Paris Olympics. Because, get it? It's a cheetah who says she's a male.
The thing is that all of this really depends on thinking that men are, capital S, superior to women.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Physically, biologically.
Physically, mentally,
I mean, they're going to go mentally too, but
like truly, I mean, there's a bajillion sports that being a trans woman might be a disadvantage. Like, it's just this. That like men are better, women are worse. If women want to succeed, and also these people who have dedicated their life to a sport are willing to like cheat their way and quote unquote cheat their way to the it's.
And the complainers, by the way, it wasn't the people Khalif in the Olympics beat certain people. Those people were not the ones complaining. Yeah. Even the opponent that Khalif beat said later, like, she was genuinely sad and she was crying. And people are like, she's crying because she lost to a man. She said later, she's like, no, I'm crying because my Olympics are done.
Yeah.
And I've put a lot of time into this.
She got her bell rung real good.
And she said, like, no, all due respect to Khalif.
She said she regretted not shaking her hand.
Right. She was just like, shit, my Olympics are done. I'm walking away. It wasn't because she thought something different. Anyway.
As if these people give a shit about women's boxing anyway.
They don't care about, like, the WNBA. They don't know a thing about women's sports. That's the thing. Okay. Anyway, none of this is surprising coming from Dawkins because, as we have talked about on this podcast, he's been spreading transphobic ideas for a long time, platforming them for a long time. But the shit for his situation really hit the fan last week when he said his Facebook page was deleted because of what he posted about the boxer. And here's what he posted.
On Twitter.
Yeah. Here's what he said on Twitter about Facebook.
Oh, Christ.
My entire Facebook account has been deleted, seemingly, parentheses, no reason given, because I tweeted that genetically male boxers such as Imani Khalif, and then in parentheses, XY undisputed, should not fight women in Olympics. Of course, my opinion is open to civilized argument, but outright censorship? Just to point out, XY undisputed? No, it's very much disputed.
I think we need to let this be a lesson to all of us who are making and listening to this podcast that we should never rest on our intellectual laurels because, like, there but the grace of God go I. You know what I mean?
The
like,
people who are known for being publicly smart can do very stupid things.
And not even just smart, but a critical thinker.
Oh, yeah. That's his whole brand, right?
And this ain't it. So I think everybody should take a beat and like promise yourself that you're not going to do this right-wing slide as you get older because look at how it looks to the rest of us.
Yeah, he's so bad at this. So to be clear, Dawkins is literally wrong when he says Khalif is a, quote, genetically male boxer. and that her supposed XY chromosomes, of which he has no proof, is undisputed. It is not undisputed.
It's not even a thing. It's not real. It's based on bullshit.
Yeah. So that tweet about getting censored on Facebook was then amplified by a chorus of right-wing bigots, including Elon Musk, who was like, wow. And then later wrote...
I mean, that is pretty eloquent for him.
Yes. And then he later, in a separate tweet, Elon said, Facebook, a.k.a. Meta, can never be trusted. Because
unlike me, Elon Musk, who can
Now
always be trusted.
listen to my
Just
live
ask
stream
my
with Trump.
75 children who do not speak to me.
Yes.
Hashtag trustworthy.
Again, Dawkins' claim here, forget the boxer stupid comments he's making there. His claim never made any sense. Why would Facebook punish him for something he posted on Twitter? Those are two different companies. They have different moderation rules. They don't care what you post on a different
Does
outlet.
he think Zuckerberg and Musk are like calling each other at night and be
thinks
like,
they are-
did you
Yes.
hear what Dawkins said?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we should take
And
him
then
off.
why would Facebook punish him for bigotry that is routinely shared on Facebook? Do you think
That's-
there are no anti-trans
Yeah,
comments
surely.
about the boxer on Facebook? Because I promise you, I don't even befriend people like that, but it was all over my feed.
God, I'm really hoping that this all comes down to he forgot his Facebook password.
Evangelist
That's what
Franklin,
I'm hoping.
We'll come back to that. Evangelist Franklin Graham, just to name one example, has said far more hateful stuff about trans people far more frequently. His page is up and running without any problem always.
Are you saying Richard Dawkins made a claim without evidence?
And then, why would Facebook delete a page, much less a very big page with a
Yeah.
lot of followers, without explanation? I've had posts taken down on my Friendly Atheist Facebook page, but it always comes with we took this post down for this reason.
Right.
Like, here's what your options are at this point. Like, I don't agree with those decisions like all the time, but they always tell me what the problem is and then send warnings before they would delete someone's page. So like, what the hell happened? Was it really as stupid as Dawkins like didn't know a password or something?
Yeah, I think he was like logged into his like fake account. You know that people make fake accounts
The
so they
Finsta?
the Finsta.
Yeah,
I was gonna
yeah,
say
yeah.
Finsta, but I knew you would make fun of me for
I
it.
would make fun of you. I will make fun
That's
of
my
myself
theory
for
right
knowing
now
the
is
word.
that he's under his like Clyde. Oh God, I can't even. All I can think is Clyde Drexler, and that's just a fucking basketball player.
Yeah.
That's his like secret name that he
Okay.
like creeps on teenage girls or whatever.
So then the
Clyde
next
Drexler,
thing that happened.
Jessica, what are you doing?
Yeah, no one knows. So then
Clyde the
days
Glide.
later, Dawkins' tweet about Facebook was deleted without explanation.
By him, we presume.
I assume. I had to work off of a screenshot because that tweet was no longer there. And his Facebook page was back up and running.
Oh,
and
interesting.
no explanation provided by Dawkins for any of this.
He forgot
So-
his password.
And then, here's the best part. Someone named Danny Lever, who is the Public Affairs and Communications Director at Meta, which owns Facebook, chimed in on Twitter with an explanation.
shit.
Like multiple times, copied and pasted the same thing to Dawkins, to Elon Musk, like
Doesn't
on
this
her
person
own
have
page.
better things to do
No,
with
this
her
is their
time?
job. She's the communications director for the company.
Okay.
But she said, I'm going to quote here, "This is not what happened. Dawkins' account appears to have been compromised or hacked, so we took action to secure the account and prevent wrong usage of the page."
Oh my God.
That step was taken on July 30th. His last post on Facebook was on July 25th before the Olympics even started and was not even topical to boxing. This action, to shut down his page, this action had nothing to do with any content Mr. Dawkins posted, and we are in the process of restoring the page as soon as it is secured. While we were focused on securing the page, we regret that we weren't able to communicate this to the account holder more promptly. Okay, to put that in other words, I think this is quoting Eli Bosnick here on his show, Scathing Atheist. I think it's Eli. But he basically said, so Dawkins' password was like password. And then someone got into it. I believe what happened is one of the admins on his page, like logged in and then started adding a million admins.
Oh.
And Facebook is like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
So we're going to shut down the page and basically force Dawkins to log back in and verify this is correct, everything that's happening here, because we detect weird usage. So Dawkins, we're going to shut down your page. It's on you to log back in and just say, yeah, everything's cool. and then we'll give it back to you, which is exactly what Facebook should be doing in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, they should have messaged
But
him.
they should. I mean, if he logs in, they would have told him, "Hey, your Facebook page is down, and here's how you can recover it." Maybe if he never used it,
he just never logged in.
Maybe
and
not.
I bet somebody was just
this
like,
is all
I think
speculating, to be clear. But maybe he
Not
never
me, I'm a
logged in,
psychic.
and people are like, "Hey, I can't access your page. What's up with that?" And he's like, "What? Hey, my handlers. Someone's telling me I can't access Facebook." And the last
And at no point did he try to log in.
At no point does he try to log in because he's old and he doesn't know his password, which is a normal thing.
Yeah.
But again, that would be step one to try and figure out what's happening here.
this is insane.
Anyway, it seems that when he was able to log in and change his password to password 2, you know,
With like $signs as S's,
Yes.
super secure.
then he was able to log back in and secure the page and it went back up. And then everything was fine. And then I think what happened is his page was back up and running and he deletes that tweet, not realizing, buddy, everyone has screenshots. We know what you said.
Boy. And he's not even going to say, I was wrong.
Well, he didn't for the longest time. And by the way, that Facebook
Wait,
representative,
has he since?
we'll talk about that.
Okay.
In a separate post directly to Dawkins, that Facebook communications person said, the removal of your page was a precautionary measure due to indications of potential compromise, not due to any issues with the content you posted. Basically, on Facebook, Dawkins doesn't post anything except tour dates or things related to science. Like, it's a pretty boring Facebook page.
Yeah.
He posts his opinions on Twitter, but this person was saying, yeah, you haven't posted anything since before the Olympics even started, so why would we take down your page because of that? Because of something you posted somewhere else. That doesn't make any sense. Okay.
You're so mad.
I'm so mad because this is just, all you have to do is basic Internet 101. And if you're too old to do it or you're too famous to do it, whatever, you have someone who handles your page, call them up because they will know what's going on. Did you not do any of this shit before tweeting to over 3 million people who follow you, allowing a conspiracy theory to spread? You, of all people, should know how conspiracies spread. But on August 2nd, just to recap the timeline here, his page would have been taken down at this point. And on August 2nd, as the Olympics are going, but before he started tweeting about the boxer, he said, my Facebook page has been deleted for no apparent reason. And we have not received a response through Meta or Facebook for a resolution. Was it something I said? Mind you, this is before the Olympics thing. But he already knew his page was taken down. And then 2 weeks later, he's like, they took down my page. Was it because of what I tweeted about the boxer? Buddy, just go back 2 weeks in time because you tweeted about this already.
Do you think this is attention-seeking behavior, or is he just getting old and forgetting shit?
I don't know. Neither of those sounds great.
Listen, life happens. We're all getting older. Just maybe be a little more self-aware of, if I'm a person in my 80s and technology is giving me trouble, maybe call somebody younger and not alert the entire fucking world about it.
Talk to someone who's 70 and they will help you out.
Call my dad.
Again, all this from a guy whose entire persona is championing reason and critical thinking, right?
It's so disappointing to see.
So on Wednesday night this week, finally.
Yesterday?
Yeah. After all this shit goes down and he's spreading these lies, he finally posts an article on his website that says, all right, I was wrong about some stuff. I'm going to read you the relevant portion of a very short article. Here's what he says. On August 10th, which is earlier this week.
Okay.
On August 10th, I received an email from an official at Facebook saying he was looking into the question. He sent me a second email the same day giving a full explanation. Facebook's record showed, he explained, that one of the admins with access to my account had been hacked as long ago as June 22nd, and the hacker added a, quote, flurry of unauthorized admins, unquote. Their subsequent behavior alerted Facebook, who closed the account down while they worked on the problem. My Facebook account was restored on August 11th, and I am very grateful. He then said, I deeply regret making a false suspicion of Facebook's motives.
Wow.
Okay, so there's that.
It didn't say, I'm sorry, but he said he regretted his actions, which is on the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, fine, you were wrong about Facebook, way to try to put the genie back in the bottle or whatever, a little late, but okay.
It really does show his hand, doesn't it?
Well, and yeah, but what about the Olympics boxer? Yeah, you're wrong about that too. You want to apologize for that?
Well, no, because his brain is turning to goo.
Yeah, here's what he said about that in a different paragraph. And again, a very short message. I'm sorry to say we jumped to the wrong conclusion about Facebook. Might it have some connection with my he's saying, why did we jump to the wrong conclusion? Might it have some connection with my contemporaneous stand against genetically male boxers fighting women in the Olympics?
No.
Like he's
I
saying,
think we said,
I made a mistake, but you understand my mistake because I think a lot of people were mad because I was mad about men boxing women at the Olympics. So you understand where I was coming from, you all.
This guy is still the person people associate with atheists.
Uh-huh.
What are we doing?
Yes.
I need to get a degree in zoology or something like that so I can be the new Richard Dawkins. That sounds like a lot of work.
The thing is, he's one dude, and yes, he may be the most famous atheist, but he's just one dude. But his organization, his foundation, has a direct affiliation with the Center for Inquiry, which is an organization which has not distanced itself from him, which still maintains ties with him. And that actually leads us to the next story, which is another...
That's a transition for you.
Oh, it's a very good transition because this one directly impacts the Center for Inquiry, which hasn't said a damn thing about Dawkins during all of this. They just keep their mouths shut about this thing. Okay, listen, there are many... If there's a church-state story, I have no problem dissecting it, talking about it, whatever. I'm a little iffy when it comes to talking about racism in America, because I don't have the experience, because I'm brown, but I don't have the experience of like a black person in America. So everything I'm saying comes from what I've read, what I understand, but not from direct personal. I don't experience the type of racism they do.
Yeah.
Different types, but not that type.
Different flavors.
So then
Yours is more airport-based.
Yes, thank you.
Theirs is more police-based.
That's right. And so the thing is, the Center for Inquiry has a magazine called Free Inquiry. And for those of you who are
Is it a
young,
free magazine?
No. For those of you who are young, I'll say younger than 35.
Okay, well,
they
only
don't,
38.
I'm guessing they don't know what Free Inquiry is or Skeptical Inquirer. But for old people, before the internet, I have talked to so many people who are that age or older who have said they first became aware of atheism, secular humanism, whatever. Not because of books, because they weren't really around, certainly not as widespread as during the New Atheism days. They learned about this stuff because maybe at a bookstore or in a library, they saw an issue of Free Inquiry or Skeptical Inquirer, these magazines put out by the Center for Inquiry and its founder, Paul Kurtz, and they read it and they're like, this stuff makes sense to me. And the thing is, Paul Kurtz died many years ago. They still put out the magazine, though, and occasionally it has some decent articles. Skeptical Inquirer still focuses on, like, Bigfoot too much for my taste. Like, I don't give a shit about that sort of pseudoscience anymore.
Cryptozoology?
Yeah, it doesn't affect my life.
Cryptozoology.
Free Inquiry does have articles that might be more relevant to my tastes, but because of the way they do it online and so much stuff is behind a paywall, like, as someone who follows this stuff closely, their stuff never breaks out of the bubble. I've never seen in many years outside sources, mainstream places say, blah, blah, blah. This appeared in the latest issue of Free Inquiry magazine. Like, it doesn't happen. And I don't get their digital strategy. I think the reason it's still going, this magazine and all their magazines, is because they have a lot of older members who still pay their subscription fees.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know what it's going for, but like, that's where the money is coming from to keep these things going. Anyway. The point is, I still get emails about the magazine, like our latest issue is out. You could read these articles. And most of them I skip because you're not relevant to my taste. But then, every now and then, they publish something where I'm like, the hell did you just say? And a lot of those responses from me come from their new CEO, who's been around for several years, but she took over well after Paul Kurtz left, Robyn Blumner. She's the head of their organization now, and she writes an editorial in Free Inquiry magazine.
Okay.
And a while back, she also posted some article about like the same anti-transgender bullshit that Dawkins spews.
Seriously?
Yeah. And
with these
I
people?
feel like we talked about it, but it was years ago at this point. But like, this is what I'm talking about. It's so bad, and yet, because it's usually behind a paywall, no one ever sees it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the case of their new August-September 2024 issue, which was just put out not long ago, because someone brought this to my attention that there's an article in there that is so bad, but no one knows it because no one reads the magazine.
Okay.
And if they do, these are not like Twitter people who are going to share it online, right? Because there's nothing to share.
Are they getting in the anti-trans game too?
Oh, they've been anti-trans for a while. I have it on good
What is
authority
wrong with
that
them?
people, staffers, board members have left because of the anti-trans stuff. By the way, this is the
Wow.
only atheist organization, skeptic organization I know where their board of directors, all men. Not a single woman is currently on their board of directors.
Sounds right.
They have 2 honorary board members who are women.
Well, they get training wheels until they grow their own penises.
There you go. So I spoke with Bakari Chavanu, who is a co-founder of Black Humanists and Nonbelievers of Sacramento. He wrote a really lengthy response to this horrible piece in Free Inquiry for my site. We'll post that link in the show notes. So a lot of what I'm going to say is stuff he brought up in his piece. But this is Robyn Blumner's piece. It's called Secular Humanism and the Colorblind Society. I'm going to read, it's a long article, but I'm going to read aspects of it.
Okay.
The gist of her article, best case scenario here, all right, if I'm giving her, what's the phrase I'm looking for? If I'm giving
Grace?
her
Benefit of the doubt?
sure, is that if you want to not live in a racist society, the alternative is living in a society where we're not racist because we don't see color.
Yeah, we tried that in the 90s, and it didn't catch on great.
Like, it's such a trope that Stephen Colbert's, like, back in the day, Colbert Report, his whole shtick was, now you're a black person sitting in front of me, but I don't know that because I don't see color.
This is just what my staff told me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, ongoing joke of,
Yes.
like, you can't ignore someone's race.
Obviously, I don't know this, but my staff tells me you're black. Yes,
Right.
it was a
and I believe them
outstanding bit.
because of whatever. Yeah.
Oh, man, I
So,
miss the Colbert Report.
Here's what she writes. Color blindness used to
And
be...
she's a white gentleman.
She's a white woman. Robyn Blumner. Colorblindness used to be the aspiration of nearly everyone who supported the civil rights movement.
No.
It stood in stark contrast to the Black Panther and Nation of Islam approach to black empowerment that was more segregationist, black supremacist, and anti-white.
No, Robyn.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Robyn, what are you saying?
But today's followers of the identitarian left are now the handmaidens of neo-racism.
Oh, my fucking Christ.
By the way, she cites Malcolm X and forgets the second L, which, rookie mistake, but also, you clearly didn't have any black people look over this piece for you, did you?
Do you think she's read the autobiography of Malcolm X?
No.
No. I have.
Interestingly
That was
enough,
just a small brag of my
this is
part.
from Bakari. She doesn't acknowledge the historical context of the Black Panthers, Nation of Islam, and their movements, which emerged as a response to legal racial segregation, white violence, lynching, police brutality, systematic disenfranchisement of black people. Like, that's why they appeared.
Can you give me 60 seconds to explain what the Black Panthers actually are? Were.
What I can tell you is they don't...
No, I'm giving it to... I'm going to say it. Give
Yeah,
me the
please.
time.
Oh, go.
So basically, the Black Panthers arose as a reaction to the fact that they being black communities were not being... Police were not being protected by the police. Their children were not getting food at school. All of this stuff, like there was just no support system in place. So the Black Panthers came up primarily literally making breakfast for kids. Like that was part of their whole thing. It was always a way to protect black children because the government, the state would not do it for them. And then Hoover got his claws into them and
Your 60 seconds are up.
well, and it manipulated everybody into thinking the Black Panthers were this horrible, like racist, beret-wearing, AK-47 wielding monsters, but they were just trying to feed their fucking kids.
Bakari writes that the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party does not, by the way, espouse black supremacy. No. And the Nation of Islam has, he admitted, like, they have preached the so-called inherent superiority of black people over white people, but their policies and practices never actually marginalized white people. So to put it another way, There is historical and modern context for black resistance to white racism and domination, he writes. You cannot transcend race when you don't acknowledge the historical racist harm to and violence against and marginalization of black people.
Yes.
So, okay, that was his response to Robyn. He mentioned, like you said, that the two groups, the Black Panthers, Nation of Islam, they emphasize black empowerment, cultural pride, self-defense against systemic racism and violence against black people. But none of that is about marginalizing white people, and none of it brought about black supremacy anywhere. Yeah. And honestly, if you ask like the black left today, that's not what they're fighting for either. Like reverse racism is not their goal here.
Well, and also racism requires a systemic preference to white people. So, like, you can't be racist against a white person because the whole fucking system is built to lift us up.
Yeah. And so the goals of the civil rights movement, they were about ending racial segregation and discrimination, but also creating opportunities for marginalized groups to access education, housing, employment, political empowerment, wealth. Like, integration only benefits marginalized groups if they consistently have access, Bakari writes, to the opportunities and resources that might empower them. And yeah, maybe that includes reparations too.
And you have to understand where these, what time period this is taking place at, because these are a lot of like World War II vets, I believe, who went and fought for our country, often in segregated armies, came back, and the GI Bill that was supposed to support everybody only went to white people. So when your grandfather or great-grandfather
good reason to be pissed off
came back from war, he was given a cheap house so he could build wealth and pass it on to his children. Black people were given none of that. So they are...
Yeah, have fun Googling redlining and go down
truly,
that rabbit hole.
It is the way we have put our feet on the throats of black citizens of this country is disgusting.
But later on in her piece, Robyn Blumner writes, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Are you ready for this?
Hit me.
Most white people, by the way, white is capitalized throughout her piece.
No, Robyn. My sweet, sweet angel. No.
Most white people in the United States these days are not racists.
Oh, no!
I say these days in 2024. You can point backward to a different reality. There are still racists, of course, but in general, we have excised that demon as we have sloughed off other old prejudices, such as that women shouldn't work outside the home or that LGBTQ people shouldn't legally marry each other. I'm going to stop for a second. I'm not done yet.
Ruby Bridges is 69 years old.
Yeah, she's like young and living. This idea that like we used to be prejudiced in a lot of ways, but you guys, we're not like prejudiced about women working anymore and LGBTQ people.
Are you sure?
Like,
because
buddy,
I think a vice president
work with Richard Dawkins. We just had a conversation about the bigotry against trans people from Richard Dawkins, and you're like, listen, we don't have that bigotry either.
A vice presidential candidate is saying that women who don't have children are capital B bad. What do you mean there's no prejudice against women?
She writes, we have made stunning progress, shifting all those attitudes within my lifetime. A cause for unbridled celebration, especially among humanists, many of whom were at the forefront of these civil rights struggles. Yeah, some progress has been made, but this
like
idea...
a 16-year-old white girl from Burridge wrote this. Right?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't
She's ignoring what's happening in front of our eyes. Like, look, even if most white people are not racist, which, okay, citation needed.
Yeah, right?
Racism permeates the actions of many of the most powerful people in the country. Like, how do you pretend that, like, the current Republican presidential candidate and Republican policymakers nationwide are colorblind?
Insanity.
You can't. Like, they are the ones waging campaigns against what they call critical race theory, and they use wokeness as a dog whistle against black people.
They're so not colorblind that they have to think of other words to say racist shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God,
this is why they're having trouble going after Kamala Harris, because they can't say black. What else can we call her? Is the B word taken? Not for Trump, apparently.
Wait, did you call her a bitch?
In private conversations, according to people with access.
Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me. I thought he did it on a hot mic.
But like, the point is, for any progress that certain groups, including women, including LGBTQ people, have made, the obstacles that they have to overcome are almost always created by the same group of people who perpetuate racism.
Yeah.
Like, it's not individual prejudice, it is systemic. And that is why addressing the problem requires not just understanding it, but then dismantling it. So that brings us to her criticism
Of whom?
Ibram X. Kendi, the author of many of those anti-racism books. Here's what she writes.
Read her. Did she do? So you
Ibram
want to talk
X.
about
Kendi,
race?
he? I don't remember what the names of his books are.
This is a different person then.
But
Sorry.
here's what she writes about Ibram X. Kendi. If you are not racially discriminatory toward white people, according to Ibram X. Kendi, a godparent of the identitarian left, you are racist.
What does identitarian mean?
It's their
They
fancy
love to make up
way of
words
saying
for us.
liberals. Okay. The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination, Kendi wrote in words that would be softened in a future edition after they became the subject of criticism. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination, unquote. In other words,
He
says
said
Blum,
that or she said
he
that?
said that. Then she writes, in other words, two wrongs do make a right.
I feel like I'm hearing two wrong opinions.
Here's the thing. Here's what Kendi was saying in the book, How to Raise an Anti-Racist.
Okay.
Basically saying systemic discrimination, systemic racism is all around us, and marginalized groups, black people specifically, they have faced historical disadvantages. If you just could magically wave a wand and end racism today, the problems that the system created would still be there.
Generational
It does
wealth,
not-
generational trauma, all of it.
So none of that would be magically fixed, even
Right.
if racism ended.
Right.
So Kendi's argument is we have to find a way to level the playing field. Now, how do you do that? Well, you got to make up for those historic discrepancies. So we need to implement policies that actively favor marginalized groups in order to counterbalance all those past injustices. Now, reparations is one tool you could use to fix the problem, but it's not the only tool. We could debate what the right answer is. But this is why Kendi is saying, like, if you want to fix past prejudice, past discrimination, you need present discrimination. It's not saying let's all go beat up white people. It's saying if you want to counterbalance systemic racism, we need to put in place policies that help marginalized people. And if that means you do it at the expense of people who have been given the leg up over the course of decades, like, so be it.
Yeah.
Again, we can criticize the idea. We can talk about whether that's really the best approach, but that's what he's saying. It's not let's be anti-white. It's more
Yeah.
let's be pro-marginalized groups.
Yeah.
But she writes that off as saying, see, he wants racism in a different way. I'm against racism, period. It's like you're missing the entire point.
We
Like-
need to not let white people talk so much. We've made too many mistakes.
Again, I'm not even a Kendi apologist here, but he's saying we cannot achieve equity when systemic barriers like unequal education, discriminatory housing, high incarceration rates, class oppression, this is all from Bakari here. If those persist, you're not going to be able to fix the problem. So
Yeah.
unless you address them head on and intentionally, you're not going to create a colorblind society.
Well, and it's very much you have to admit you have a problem before you can do anything about it. And we're still not quite there.
Yeah.
So
The problem with the Supreme Court is that the conservatives on the Supreme Court have said, like, we're going to get rid of affirmative action when it comes to college. Why? Because if you want to end racism, let's stop being racist. And of course, the criticism against that is you didn't fix the problem.
Right.
Ignoring race doesn't solve racism. That's the argument. Oh, but this is the best part about the article. This was my personal favorite example, which is that
I'm going to hate this.
listen, racism doesn't exist, you guys, and you know how I know that, says
me.
Blumner.
Tell me.
Let's see. Now, how to fix racism best and most effectively, however, is not to double down on the enfeebling notion that every black
Enfeebling.
person is a victim of a systemically racist society, and under those circumstances, their lot is to be oppressed and downtrodden, especially because reality says differently. Pause. Basically saying, listen, black people aren't going to be
my
like victims
fucking
forever. They're going to be fine.
Christ.
Reality says otherwise, and then I will continue.
This dumb
Are you
dumb.
ready for
No.
proof that like reality says differently?
Tell me.
I quote,
Is it a black president?
"We have a current black vice president, Secretary of Defense, Ambassador to the United Nations, Chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, and 2 U.S. Supreme Court justices. As these examples and thousands like them demonstrate, in today's America, people can largely succeed irrespective of their race.
This woman needs to have her computer taken away from her.
So to what you were saying, we've had a black president, you guys, so racism is over.
Post-racial America, baby. I love it here.
I kind of love the fact that she said we have two black, U.S. Supreme Court justices.
I don't think we can count Clarence Thomas in any meaningful way.
She just cited Clarence Thomas as proof that we're not racist in America. She cited the most powerful white supremacist in America, who also happens to be black, as proof that racism doesn't exist.
Truly, did this really come out this year?
From the president/CEO of one of the largest humanist groups in the country.
This just reeks of 2012 energy, doesn't it?
2024, baby. Latest issue. By the way, Amy Coney Barrett, not a win for feminism.
No.
While we're at it.
No.
Because guess what? It's more than just a gender thing. Okay. The point is, it doesn't matter if a few successful people in any given group have achieved that success if other people who share their background have obstacles in their path to achieving the same thing, and those obstacles very much still exist for a lot of people.
I mean, when the...
we literally have a name for tokens. You know what I mean?
When the January 6th attacks happened, people had nooses and were lynching effigies of Obama. You're kind of showing your hand, gang. You can't have it both ways. You can't be using imagery from from the South, the antebellum South, and pretend. Is she out of her fucking mind? What universe is she living? I cannot be, this so reads of a high school student in an affluent white neighborhood of there's basketball players making a lot of money, so I don't understand why
are you all so mad?
how many people edited this? How many hands got on this ball before it got to this podcast so I can eviscerate it? This is so embarrassing, you guys. Oh, my God.
So what about affirmative action? Don't worry. Even though that's one of the most powerful tools.
We're not done with her?
Oh, God, no. Even though that's one of the biggest tools to potentially fix the problem.
There's no problem, Hemant. Don't be an idiot.
I know. I'm sorry. Blumner says, listen, black people don't want affirmative action either. She writes, such stark reverse discrimination of the Kendi variety
makes me want to die.
Is certain
Candy?
Ibram X. Kendi.
Oh, Kendi.
Yeah, such stark reverse discrimination of the Kendi variety is certain to stoke racial and ethnic resentments. And even black Americans reject that kind of intervention. A Gallup poll from fall 2023 found that nearly 7 in 10 Americans thought the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling curtailing affirmative action in college admissions was mostly a good thing, including 52% of black Americans. Why? Because to people of goodwill, admitting people to elite universities based largely on one's race puts an unfortunate asterisk on the academic careers of those admitted through an unfair process. It harms the very people it purports to help. Unquote.
This is so genuinely offensive. I kind of can't believe it.
Yeah. So 7 in 10 Americans were fine with getting rid of American
do you know where those numbers
action.
came from?
I mean, it's a Gallup poll. I looked at the Gallup poll. That is what it said.
Is it represented fairly?
She described it correctly in terms of the raw numbers. Yeah, 52% of black Americans, according to Gallup, said, yeah, we're fine with the Supreme Court's decision.
That's surprising.
What she doesn't mention is that, first of all, among black adults, the sort of people who have maybe benefited from those policies and maybe have a stronger understanding of the gains of the civil rights movement, only 33% supported the Supreme Court decision. And it also
Don't
depends...
bring nuance to this, Hemant. We're only coming at this with a
how the
sledgehammer.
question is asked. A different survey from the Pew Research Center in 2023 that did not involve the Supreme Court just said that 47% of black Americans supported the use of race and ethnicity in the admissions process for selective colleges, but only 29% opposed it. The rest of them had no opinion.
Oh, interesting.
So, no, black people were cool with affirmative action, but also, guess what? She said in her piece, that we don't want to put an asterisk because they got into these elite colleges based largely on one's race. The way it
That's
worked
such bullshit.
is that when Harvard, for example, uses affirmative action, they're not saying, oh, this person's black, let's admit them. No, they're saying, well, we want to make sure we can use race and ethnicity as part of a holistic decision because guess what? There's a lot of factors. For example, and this is from Bakari here, race was never the main factor for admitting black students, but those colleges said, let's look beyond their test scores and look at race and other issues that might factor into the issue. Because, for example, what if you're a high-achieving but disadvantaged black student who graduated from a less resourced school? What if there is a way to say, you know what, this person does have the academic skills and commitment needed to succeed at our elite school? So race is one factor. A zip code could be another factor. You can take all of that into account. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, fine, you could do all that, but you can't ask what color they are. And that's the annoying thing. It's like, why can't they use that as one of many things? Because guess what? A white student who comes from a zip code that is in a poverty-stricken place, that person should also have a leg up. No one was saying otherwise.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, that nuance doesn't come across in a question like, is it right to ban affirmative action for colleges or something?
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that the number was higher than you might expect, but also I don't think a lot of people understand what's being asked
This
necessarily.
lady is so out of touch with reality.
There's one other section I wanted to, two other sections to quote here. She cites a passage from a book called The End of Race Politics. It's basically saying racism is no longer an issue.
What year?
The book is relatively new, but here's the passage.
Okay.
One interesting poll
Wait, who's the author? I need to know the authors.
of this book,
Yeah.
Coleman Hughes.
Okay.
I don't know much about Coleman Hughes. But this is Robyn Blumner. One interesting poll Hughes cites is a 2013 Gallup survey asking blacks in the United States the following question. On the average, blacks have worse jobs, income, and housing than whites. Do you think this is mostly due to discrimination against blacks? Or is it mostly due to something else? Fully 60% of blacks answered something else, meaning a solid majority did not think racism was the primary cause of disparities in life outcomes, contrary to the identitarian left's insistence. So most black people
What?
said racism wasn't the reason there's racism in society or the outcomes of racism.
I mean...
But again, when you say something else was the cause, that also includes racism. Like,
Well, and
just
also-
because bad things happened, but guys in white hoods weren't doing it,
Right.
doesn't mean racism didn't play a part in whatever
Right.
disadvantage you have.
Well, and I certainly don't want to infantilize anybody or explain their own experience to them, but I also think it's worth noting that there are more systemic racist things in place that maybe we don't see every single day. Like the, I don't know, just like the police presence in black neighborhoods is different and you have a different relationship with so I guess I'm just trying to say that like even things that maybe people don't assign to racism could have just truly, like you were saying, redlining. The fact that there are slums in the richest fucking nation in the world is a sign that we don't care about a certain group of people. Because if we cared about people like that, we would do everything we can to lift everyone up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and from an anti-racist, anti-sexist perspective, like saying we should get rid of identity politics, everything is identity politics. It just depends on who it affects. Like if you want economic policies that benefit the wealthy, that's identity politics for rich people.
Yeah.
You know?
As if the right isn't obsessed with identity politics.
Yeah, they love identity
All they do
politics.
is
If
talk
you
about
look like
that.
Trump and J.D. Vance. Like, that's what they do. But finally, she says, and this is actually at the beginning of her piece, but this is what she writes. Is it at the beginning of the piece? I got to double check. But like, this is Blumner again. You don't bring a diversity of people together by dividing them by skin color or making skin color an essential qualification for disqualification for life's rewards. You bring them together by making racial distinctions as irrelevant as humanly possible. which is what colorblindness means. It does not mean we are blind to skin color. It means our best to treat people equally without regard to it.
They genuinely think that when we talk about racism, we're literally just talking about like, that person has dark skin and so I am not going to take them seriously. That's not what racism is.
Yeah.
It's
ignoring racism will never fix racism. And it's I love this idea.
Well, if you're a white person, you could ignore racism and that'll fix it because you won't see it.
I agree. And we have to respect the differences. And it would be great if we could have a colorblind society, but we're not there. We're far from it.
Yeah.
And the only way to fix it is by addressing racism, by addressing systemic inequalities. Yeah. And you would think secular humanism as a philosophy is well suited to both celebrate diversity and advocate for the changes we need because it's data-based, because we know it works. And yet the head of the largest secular humanist group in the country, one of them anyway, there's not that many, is basically saying, yeah, just ignore race. I'm not racist. I don't see race.
I also think she's skipping over one really important fact, which is the world is better when more diverse people are running it. You know what I mean?
But if you think about diversity,
like I'm thinking
then how dare you?
I think I've used this example before, but back in the day before there were like female FBI agents or whenever Hoover was doing his thing, this woman disappeared, ended up, she was murdered. But the cops didn't investigate it because they're like, oh, she didn't bring her makeup bag, so she wouldn't have done this without her. Just something like that. And a woman walked in on the scene and was like, no, this is what that looks like. Women do this, that, and the other thing. Like, what you said is fucking nothing. You're just making shit up. And they, because there's different people around with different experiences and need to be communicated. And they are still part of our society. And if we only have white people running everything, I don't think that we're going to get all of the good shit that we need to get.
By the way, there are only 2 citations in the piece that get footnotes.
Oh, good. Let's
hear
them.
One of them is
the Gallup poll?
Is fine. No, that was cited directly in the article.
Oh, I see.
One of them is Pamela Paul, who's an editorial writer at the New York Times, who is famous for writing anti-trans pieces, and also was like, anti-racism was never the right answer. That piece is cited because if you're looking to Pamela Paul as your go-to for like how to think about an issue, you are a broken person.
Do you think Pamela Paul and Paula Pell hang out?
Yes, that's exactly how it works.
It's just so embarrassing.
It is.
It's so deeply embarrassing. And
I have heard, by the way, from CFI people, I'll leave it at that, who were grateful
on their way out the door.
Who were grateful that I posted that piece from Bakari, basically saying, like, thanks for sticking it to what is going on, not just with Robyn, but with their board, with Dawkins. Look at all the shit they are pushing and promoting.
Well, here's the
People are like, there are no right-wing atheist groups. Like, the biggest one here with a giant budget, relatively speaking, among atheist groups, they're pushing for right-wing bullshit all the time.
I don't understand how all of these supposed critical thinkers are just completely fucking missing the plot.
Yeah.
Like
my thinking about
on?
Dawkins is like, how could Dawkins be this stupid about so many things? And him, it's an easier answer. He's rich. He's famous. It's very easy to live in a bubble where everyone you ever meet, because you're on book tour or something, is like, you're the smartest person ever. I learned so much from your book. So everything you say is right.
Smart.
Yeah. And to be surrounded by people who are really never going to tell you no because you're only with them because you're like-minded.
That's how you become Tom Cruise.
We can do that too, but the benefit of not being in that position is, listen, I have plenty of people, many within my family and friend groups, who tell me all the time I'm an idiot. I'm used to it. What's
I tell
surprising,
people how much an idiot I am because they don't believe me because I seem so smart.
But for someone like Blumner, who is at the head of this organization, she's not where he is, and I don't mean that with disrespect, and most of us aren't. She should be able to have plenty of people willing to tell her, oh, this article's full of shit, and you can't publish something like this.
I mean, if she's everybody's boss, maybe not.
Right. But also, then there's an editor at the magazine.
Yeah, that's my question. Who, truly, how many
anymore.
hands on this ball were there before it got to this kitchen table?
Right.
Because there's like 6 places that it should have been like.
And I only
somebody
read
should
you,
have been
like-
wait, hold on.
It's a long article. I didn't even read all of it to you, but yeah.
To what? Like, why? Nobody. Hey, ma'am, nobody asked you. That's the other
I
thing.
know. You have an editorial. You can write about anything you
can write-
want, and this is the issue you decided to spend your time on?
So, I guess what I don't truly understand is this atheist thing of being anti-trans or racist or whatever, and so working so hard to cannibalize its own movement when you can just look across the aisle and be like, hey, maybe we should be more worried about men who think they can control their daughter's sexuality, or like
Imagine
the
if
actual
there was
things we all used to care about.
I know they can't endorse candidates or anything, but like imagine if there was something like a Project 2025 out there that they needed to warn people about. Maybe that would be a thing to
What a
spend
good
some time
point.
doing.
Like, what? Who is this audience for besides other rich people? Does she think a black person is going to read this article and be like, wow, thank you, rich white lady, for explaining how nobody's racist against me?
I wish this was in front of a paywall so more people could see it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to the person who provided me with the PDF of the article.
Yeah. Is it illegal to post that? Yes.
It might be. So I didn't post the whole thing, but we can cite it and talk about it, which is what we're doing now. You deserve some good news. I have a little bit of good news then.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, before I move to that.
Oh, okay.
Listen,
Not good
when I
news
was
yet.
in college,
Be sad, Jessica.
and I was starting to do activism, atheist activism of any kind, I had an opportunity to do an internship with the Center for Inquiry, and I took it. It wasn't like the best internship, like not paid much.
Yeah.
If anything, I don't feel like I did much for them
Another
either.
classist and racist things at unpaid internship.
Yeah. But I will say, like, one of the reasons I even considered it is, oh, this is the place that puts out those magazines.
Yeah.
I've seen those magazines. They write good stuff. It would be cool to work with the people behind the organization. And to their credit, I got to meet some of the people who are working. And, like, they were awesome people. They were amazing activists and writers.
This was 45 years ago.
This was 72 years ago. And it's just sad where they're at now.
It is hard to watch,
And I do wonder how many people who are on the payroll are like, I would leave if I could,
Yeah.
but I can't because it's a paycheck and I need it. I get that. But also I wonder how many people that applies to.
Really sucks to see, previously respectable institutions and human beings just...
Yeah.
You
don't have to be a contrarian on everything.
That's such a good point, Hemant. Is that what this is? It's like too many people agree with this thing, and instinctively I hate that.
What? Racism is bad? Don't worry, I'm a skeptic. Let me offer a counterpoint.
Oh my God, you're right.
Speaking of racist, let's go to Texas.
We've gone too far.
All right. So in Texas, it's
Lyndon
good
B.
news.
Johnson's from Texas. Did you know that?
Speaking of talking about one thing your entire life, which is now me. No, there's a saga that's been going on for over 8 years. It finally ended this week. Back in 2015, in the Texas state capitol, they had an open forum for holiday displays, and they do nativity scenes in there. So the Freedom from Religion Foundation said, fine, we want to put up a secular nativity, quote unquote. And their secular nativity is this cute, cartoonishly looking nativity display that has on the manger, like, a copy of the Bill of Rights.
Do you have a picture?
Yeah, I have a picture, yeah. It has a little Bill of Rights, and standing around it, you have, like, some of the founding fathers and the Statue of Liberty. It's a little cute pop-up display. Listen, if this is not the Satanic Temples display, it's not meant to offend anybody.
I don't know what it has to do with Christmas, but whatever.
Right?
It's cute.
Again, they have Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. It also had a little disclaimer on the side that said, Happy Winter Solstice. And they said on there, at this season of the winter solstice, we honor reason and the Bill of Rights. Keep church and state separate. All right, whatever. That's their little sign on the side. So, like, if you didn't like it, too damn bad. Like, this was an open forum. They went through the rigmarole needed to put up a display. They filed the paperwork, they got the permit, whatever. And if critics didn't want to see it, guess what? The state of Texas could take down the forum entirely. But also, why are you making a big deal of this? It's not that big of a deal.
9 years later.
I know. So what did Governor Greg Abbott do at the time?
Nothing good.
3 days after that display went up and just days before Christmas, he just said, we're taking down that display.
Oh, so he did the only illegal thing he could have done.
Yes.
He had two legal choices and picked neither.
He wrote a letter to the person who runs the board that puts up displays, basically, and he explained his reasoning.
A weird
Here's
board to
Greg
be
Abbott.
on.
Here's Greg Abbott. First, far from promoting morals and the general welfare, the exhibit deliberately mocks Christians and Christianity. Which, first of all, where did the rules say you got to promote morality?
I feel like any time anybody like makes an homage or a reference to something Christian, people think they're mocking it, and like.
Yeah, the Last Supper at the Olympics, which it wasn't.
Which it wasn't
but
the
like,
Last Supper, but also like, first of all, that's not actually how it was. That's just a painting that you've seen
listen,
a
if
ton.
you want me to mock Christianity, I have many ways to do it. This one's not on the list.
Like, just referencing it isn't mocking it. That's just not how. And even if you are mocking it, it doesn't always. You don't need to like
Too bad
get your
you have
hackles
an
up about
open
it.
forum. Greg Abbott went on to say, the foundation's spiteful message is intentionally designed to belittle and offend, which undermines rather than promotes any public purpose a display promoting the Bill of Rights might otherwise have had. That was part one of his letter. He goes on to say, second, the exhibit does not educate. What does the nativity scene? First of all, not a rule. Did not
Educate?
say. But also, how is a nativity scene? How would that educate anybody? At least the Bill of Rights is educational, and you can make that argument.
I cannot think of a single way that a nativity scene is supposed to be educational.
Third, says Abbott, the general public does not have a, quote, direct interest in the Freedom from Religion Foundation's purpose. So it's a mockery. It's offensive. Therefore, Greg Abbott says, I can remove it.
So he's wrong, and he's wrong.
Yeah. Like, none of that made any sense. There was no rule about it has to promote morality, any display, or that it has to educate.
But Abbott is like, I'm going to definitely sink Texas into a 9-year-long lawsuit over this because my fifis were hurt.
And he writes all
What
this.
about facts don't care about your feelings? The Bill of Rights is real.
Oh, no. Only their feelings can be hurt by this sort of stuff. By the way, Abbott argued it wasn't educational because guess what? George Washington would totally worship Jesus. And Greg Abbott actually said in the letter to the dude running the displays.
Good news. We have evidence that he did
to take just one example, consider this passage from George Washington's prayer journal. And he quotes this long passage about God. And guess what? That whole passage is fraudulent. Washington never wrote it.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's impressive. I figured it was an out of context thing.
So, Greg Abbott takes down this display. FFRF files a federal lawsuit. This is in February of 2016, saying They're saying you're violating our U.S. constitutional rights.
I see.
So we're going to federal court because you can't do the thing you just did.
So
this is viewpoint discrimination.
Is it them v. the state of Texas? Is that what it
Something
is?
like that.
Or
Against Abbott, though, I think by name.
Oh.
And listen, I'm not going to go through the whole legal battle here, but Abbott tried to get the lawsuit thrown out. A judge said, no, we're not throwing it out. They have a legit claim, even if I'm not ruling on it yet. In 2017, a judge said, yeah, they had the right to have their display in the Capitol. But then Abbott appealed it, and it goes on for a while. The surprising thing is that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is notoriously conservative, even they said, yeah, FFRF is kind of right here. And so earlier this year, a judge went back to a lower court judge who's like, yeah, I told you all this forever ago. Can't believe it took years to get back to me. But FFRF is right. This thing is over, and everyone seems to say that. And so this
has just been Texas appealing and appealing and appealing and appealing?
And then it gets taken down a notch, and then they appeal again when they don't like it.
Do you have any sense of how much money this would have...
Yes, I do.
Oh, thank Christ.
So
okay,
this
good.
week, why am I bringing this up? Because FFRF this week finally received a check.
Wow.
From Abbott's side. Now, is this from Abbott personally?
No,
or
it's
like
not
from
like from his
taxpayers
savings
in
account.
Texas? I didn't get definitive...
He's not liquefying his stock holdings.
I could not find definitive evidence that this is like taxpayer dollars. So hold off on that accusation. I don't know where the money's coming from. But the total bill that he had to pay, $358,073.67.
And that's just the settlement.
Well, that's the final amount that covers legal fees and like you were wrong, pay up, all of that. Like,
wow.
after several years, the Republican governor, who was told, by the way, early on, you can't remove their display. And he's like, but I'm Texas.
I mean, it does feel very much like the aspect of somebody who's never been told no in his entire life.
I mean, again, this is, yes, you're right. It's Texas where a Republican governor has enough legislators where he can do whatever he wants and get away with it.
Well, also, like, I bring this up sometimes, but the guy who did Fire Festival, who, like, fucked, like, to me, that is so the prototype of a white dude who just everything's always worked out for him because other people do shit in the background that he doesn't know about. And I think that is the kind of person we're dealing with now is like, I want this to happen. Y'all figure it out. I'm going to just be mad about it.
Yeah.
And now the state of Texas is out $500,000 or whatever.
Yeah, 300 plus. And again, is that taxpayer money? I don't know, but it's money that didn't need to be spent if you just listen to the smart people.
I mean, I'm glad the Freedom from Religion Foundation has it instead of Texas. Am I happy about that? I don't know.
Yes, you are happy about that. It's good. They got paid for their time.
Actually, they do have, whether or not it's from the taxpayer, don't they famously have like a $250 surplus in Texas that they refuse to touch for some reason?
They have the money. They're not using it on education.
Or, you know.
Or fixing their grid.
Yeah, like, or electricity or housing.
They don't need that. Just got to fight the religious battles.
And get those cheap flights to Cabo. Not Cabo, where did he go? Cancun.
Oh, there you go.
Is Ted Cruz still a senator? Is he coming up soon for election?
He is up. Colin Allred.
For this year?
Colin Allred is the Democrat who's running against him, and it's Texas, so it's like a Beto O'Rourke sort of thing. It's a long shot, even though he's great, and he's up against Cruz, who's so unlikable.
Yeah.
But you need a lot more to go right.
Was it close with Beto and Cruz?
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
It was a few points, but enough.
6 years ago, so I don't know.
It's time. We'll see. Okay. I'm going to jump to... you'll enjoy this.
This is the longest episode we've ever
really
done,
is.
and I have so much to do today.
No, you don't. Okay.
I do.
So if conservatives want to push back against the claim that they're weird, I'm going to show you what they should not do.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Am I coming around?
No, not yet.
Okay.
There is a TV show on Kenneth Copeland's ministry scam evangelism channel.
Scam evangelism.
He has a thing called Kenneth Copeland's Victory Channel, like a live streaming forever service.
Well, that's a called shot.
And there's a show on there called Flashpoint. And if you go on their website, Flashpoint says, we're a venue for, quote, tackling topics that mainstream media does not.
Anytime somebody calls anything Flashpoint, I
which is also
look askance at it.
Pretty sure that's Alex Jones's motto as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, recently, the host of that show, his name is Gene Bailey, he explained that his next guest is a prophetic voice. He actually goes out of his way, Gene Bailey.
Prophetic?
Yeah, and he says, listen, what we put on the air, we take very seriously. That comes
all
even
24/7 of it.
That comes even more so when it comes to men of the cloth and prophets. Basically saying, listen, we always
prophets with a PH, right?
We always vet our stories. But when someone says they're speaking for God, we really vet them.
We call God, and he's like, yep, I'm talking to him.
And
Classic
he said,
Terry.
So we vetted this guy. His name is Joseph Z, the letter Z. He has no last name. I dare you to find his last name. You will not.
Is he a real human being?
Questionable.
Okay.
So they brought on Joseph Z to talk about the country, the state of our nation, Tim Walz, all that stuff. And Joseph Z, they gave him a softball question to begin with. Are you encouraged or discouraged by where America is these days? And on a show like Flashpoint, there's only one answer to that question.
Discouraged. The Satanists are taking over. What did she call it?
Identitarian left.
Identitarian.
Yeah. All right, let me play you the response from Joseph Z to that question. Because all he had to say was, I'm very discouraged. It's very bad, and it's going to get worse.
Unless,
I can't play politics, but it will get worse if we elect, Okay, but here's what he actually said. Let me play this clip right here.
Here at Flashpoint, we take
This is the host.
What we put on the air, we take very seriously.
Oh.
And who we put on the air, we
did.
take seriously as well. But that comes even more so when it comes to men of the cloth and prophets.
Here's
Are
Joseph
you encouraged or discouraged about where America is right now?
even when we bring up guys like Tim Walz and you're looking at what's going on, people say he's, Midwestern folksy. I have another word for him, being from Minnesota myself, and it's weird. The guy's just weird.
Skip ahead.
You see the way he hugs his wife. You see the way he does everything.
Hugs his wife.
And, it's interesting how the spirit of Antichrist just loves to pick these people that fit right in with the wicked overlord, lizard mafia that is really driven by their goblin masters. And when you're looking at this, I believe that's exactly what we're facing right now.
Let me help you out with that. Bring your jaw back up.
I can't.
The spirit of Antichrist just loves to pick these people, like Tim Walz, that fit right in with the wicked overlord lizard mafia.
Lizard mafia.
That is really driven by their goblin masters.
Masters.
Which one
that feels like an anti-Semitic thing, right?
Probably.
The goblin thing?
Yeah.
That feels anti-Semitic.
Are you part of the lizard mafia? Who are your goblin masters?
I mean, I think my grandfather actually might have been part of the real mafia. I don't know if there were lizards involved.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry. What the
I was listening to this and I'm like, okay, you're calling Tim Walz weird. I mean, that's stupid.
Was
but
there
okay.
video of this?
Oh, there's video.
What is the host's face doing when he starts with the lizard people?
Here, come look at the picture.
Okay.
He looks like Mr. Clean mixed with mixed with Tucker Carlson's. Yeah, mixed with Tucker Carlson's what face?
And then if you just slapped it on Voldemort's face,
yes,
that's what this man looks like. I mean, he is giving the correct expression for what he is listening to.
Which is himself.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, no, I wanted to see the host's face.
Oh, the host face?
The host face while he was
They
saying.
did not show the host face while
that's
he was
too
saying
bad.
that, but I promised you they did not get phased by any of that.
Really?
Yeah.
And so, okay, so...
Joseph Z.
So does that mean that this is now part of Christianity?
Goblin
is this now
Masters
canon?
and Lizard Mafia?
Like,
Yes,
if you're
this
not
is
going to
canon.
push back against it, then you're right.
And I
you're
promised you, he did not push back against it. He went on to the next question at some point.
And did lizards and goblins come up again?
Nope.
They didn't.
And listen, if that's
And
where
he
you're
just let it
trying, if
lie.
that's the accusation you're leveling against Tim Walz, if they said it about Kamala Harris, I get where it's coming from because I know what they say about her.
Right.
Tim Walz is the most down-to-earth, boring-ass politician ever. That's his superpower.
I'm sorry.
like,
He said he's weird, first of all, which he's just fully yanking from Walz himself.
Right.
When you see how he hugs his wife, is that a thing? What the
I think
fuck
what
is he
happened
talking
is that
about?
during one of their rallies, his wife came on stage. He wasn't expecting it, so he went to shake her hand and hug her. And it's Donald Trump has done that too. A lot of people do it. You want to hug or kiss your wife on stage, but in the moment, you're just looking
Grabbing
for hands.
hands.
And so, hey, it's you. That's what they're making a big deal
when
about. It's
Al
just
Gore
dumb.
stuck his tongue down his wife's throat on
As
the
one
stage.
does. Right.
That was weird. Why did he do that? Was he supposed to was he trying to sexify his
Do you
look?
remember when that was a big story and then he didn't become president?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Tim Walz, if you
Sliding
wanna-
doors.
Of all the dark sides that Tim Walz might have, the Lizard Mafia
That's very
is
good.
not on my list.
I just love
that
that
would be
he
incredible,
says.
by the way.
Do you have a transcript? What is it? He's weird. You see it in the way he hugs his wife. Does he have
the
a second?
guy's just weird. You see the way he hugs his wife. You see the way he does everything.
Oh, I don't think those were as good examples as he thought they were.
Uh-huh.
Because he's truly and I love he's as a fellow Minnesotan, so I know what I'm talking about. What
I
the fuck
know
are you
weird
talking
when
about,
I see
sir?
it. Yeah.
As a fellow Minnesotan, he's weird. That just doesn't mean anything. When we say they're weird, it's because they're really worried about children's genitalia, and I don't think about children's
Obsessed.
genitalia almost ever.
Then
Except
that
for
makes
apparently,
you not a Republican.
apparently recently my niece found out she was never going to grow a penis and just lost her mind. Was
Poor.
inconsolable. Anyway, apparently my sister-in-law got a little too deep in the weeds about well, if you do feel like you want to, and my brother was like, listen, this is not
where this is going.
Yeah, exactly. She's
just
not going to
thought.
wrap her head around this.
Right. I got one quick final
Bless
story
her
for you.
heart.
It's an update. We've talked about Oklahoma and how they were on the nope. Forgot about that.
Yep.
they were going to grant approval to a Catholic charter school, like taxpayer money. It was called St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School.
Seville with the barber.
But what we talked about is back in June, Oklahoma's Supreme Court ruled 7-1 to block the state from opening that up, which is huge news. And what we talked about at the time is that they were going to appeal that as well.
And this is an Oklahoma Supreme Court, right?
Yeah.
They are not the liberal leftists like Clarence Thomas.
Right. And by the way, I did look at this. Like, it's not a unanimously Republican court, but it is a majority Republican court. And even they were like, yeah, no, you can't do this. Our own state constitution says you can't use public money to support private religious indoctrination. What happened this week, the update to this story, is that the contract that exists, like there was a question, are you going to appeal this to the Supreme Court? What's going on? Guess what? The contract between Oklahoma and that Catholic school has been ripped up, basically. The board of directors for the school, for the charter school oversight group, the state-run group, they basically said, okay, school's about to start. We are not doing this. We heard what the Supreme Court says, so we're going to just rip up the contract that we had. It doesn't exist anymore.
Is this a functioning school or is it a brand new school
It's a brand new school.
Funding? So is this school just going to be...
Well, that's an open question. If they don't get state funding, will they still open? And as far as I could tell, they were counting on state money in order to function.
Which they shouldn't have because they can't have it.
I know. So that's an open question of, well, what are they going to do if they don't get any state money? Who knows? Who cares? It's their problem.
Interesting.
Now, the vote to rip up the contract came with a caveat, which is that if a higher court, wink, wink, Clarence, overturns the Oklahoma Supreme Court's decision, then the Catholic school is back in business. But that's kind of a long shot even for them.
Is it, how long would it take to make it up to the Supreme Court?
They're not going to do it in 2 weeks.
No.
I don't think so.
No, they definitely
So
won't.
Gentner Drummond,
When's
who
the
is
next fucking session?
I know. Gentner Drummond, who is the Oklahoma Attorney General, who's been surprisingly good on church-state issues.
Yeah.
Here's what he said in response to all this.
Well, he's forced to be the only adult in the room.
While it is appalling that the board, the charter school board, while it's appalling that the board took so long to recognize the authority of the Oklahoma Supreme Court, I am pleased that board members finally fulfilled their duty. The proposed state-sponsored religious charter school funded by our tax dollars represents a serious threat to the religious liberty of all 4 million Oklahomans.
Wow.
Now, on the flip side, you have State Superintendent Ryan Walters, the Christian nationalist who just fantasizes about theocracy.
The world's biggest idiot.
Here's what he said this week. The Oklahoma Supreme Court has failed Oklahomans in their latest dismal ruling against parents and kids. They have chosen the path of liberal extremism and Marxism by depriving parents of a choice. It's shameful, but predictable from a failed judicial system. They do not represent conservative Oklahoma values.
All right. Sucks to be you then, I guess.
It really does. Interestingly enough, Walters is on the charter school board, but didn't make it to that meeting. And his proxy voted to rescind the contract.
Oh my Christ, these
So that's just
people.
funny.
There's just no bottom. There's no lie they won't tell.
By the way, Republicans in Oklahoma's legislature, Democrats, the 4 Democrats in Oklahoma, have been saying for a while, like, Ryan Walters, like, isn't just Republican, he's insane.
Yeah.
And you need to, like, get rid of him, expel him from his
Well,
position.
he's hoping for that appointment if Trump wins.
Right. This week, Republicans in Oklahoma, like at least a dozen of them, sent a letter to I don't know who saying, hey, we have big concerns about Ryan Walters because he's doing things that are well beyond the rules of his position, like funneling money to places they shouldn't go. Like, I mean, if Republicans are saying it, maybe someone will listen.
Yeah.
But it's Ryan Walters. I don't know. But anyway,
Jesus.
good news to say that this Catholic charter school is not going to start right now. And it looks like Oklahoma conservatives have basically accepted the fact that this is not going to happen. And we have it's too much of a long shot to try to fight it.
Yeah.
So fine, for now, to avoid any problems, we're going to rip up that contract and be done with it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Any updates on the 10 Commandments thing, or is that just dead in the
In
water?
Louisiana, the 10
that's
Commandments.
Louisiana. I thought it was Oklahoma.
There is a lawsuit about that. No update on that yet beyond what we talked about last week.
Got you.
You could find us at patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast. Please leave a review on the iTunes. And in the bonus episode, what are we talking about?
So the first thing I want to talk about is this documentary my husband and I are halfway through called Who Killed Garrett Phillips? It is maybe the most incompetent police work I have ever seen in my entire life.
Excellent. Tell us about that in the bonus.
Okay.
Anything else?
I want to discuss with you who is weirder between you and I.
Excellent.
You who watches shit on double speed in a corner, or me who just puts my watch later list on shuffle on YouTube and just watch whatever is next.
Dear God.
And also, in 2 hours, I'm going to be interviewing Kelly Carter Jackson and Nicole Hammer, both PhDs and historians. I've interviewed them both before. This is going to be really dumb. We're going to be drinking, and I'm going to be asking them stupid questions. I'm very excited about it.
That's awesome. I'm also going to talk about what I am doing. We'll release that episode, I don't know, as a bonus episode, I think, soon. And I'm also going to talk about what my plans are for next week because I'm very excited, and I will tell you about that in the bonus.
Oh, interesting.
See you next week.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, what?
Review. Great listen. 5 stars. I look forward to the episodes every week. Hemant suffers through so much Christian content for the appalling highlights, so you don't have to. Thank you, Diego Pacman.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Leave your review.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.